Welcome into the Inside Scoop. We are live from Nashville, Tennessee. Today is Sunday, July 6th, and boy, do we have a big show. I'm your host, Josh Newberg. We have a lot to cover today. There were so many commitments over the weekend. Some were pretty straightforward, some were a little hard to follow, but we are going to cover it all on today's show and break it down for you. But first, guys, do me a favor, hit subscribe to the Rivals Recruiting channel. We are growing this page, and we need you to be a part of it. Okay, on today's show, we're talking a little Alabama, Michigan, and Notre Dame. But first, let's get to these July 4th shockers, and none bigger than Felix Ojo to Texas Tech. What? Yes, the number 3 ranked offensive tackle in America at 6'7", 290 pounds, chose the Red Raiders over Texas, Ohio State, Michigan, and Florida. Now, really, this was over Texas. Everybody thought, all the insiders, all the experts, all the team site writers, everybody was leaning towards Texas until about 24 hours out. But this is a new era of college football, and Texas Tech wins. Yes. So if we break this down, 5 visits to Texas, only 1 to Texas Tech. I think he took 3 visits to Oklahoma. There was even a visit to Utah in there, but the 1 visit to Texas Tech was enough. So how did they do it? Well, Pete Nako spoke to Ojo's agent, Derek Shelby of Prestige Management, and he publicized that the offensive tackle inked a fully guaranteed 3-year, $5.1 million revenue-sharing deal. We're going to have Nakos on this week and kind of go behind the scenes of these numbers and see how it compares to guys like a Jackson Cantwell and some others. But Texas Tech isn't new to this. Remember Micah Hudson 2 classes ago, the number 2 ranked wide receiver in America, signed with Texas Tech. Yeah, the Red Raiders are involved in some of these major recruitments. It kind of reminds me of when Coach Prime arrived in Colorado a couple years ago, and he was kind of the wild card in a lot of these recruitments. I think going forward, we're going to have to look at Texas Tech and the big sword they're swinging when it comes to NIL as a wild card in some of these bigger recruitments. So Felix Ojo, 6'7", 290. He is a Red Raider. That was one of the biggest surprises, but not the least of the surprises over the weekend. Calvin Russell, elite wide receiver, 5-star wide receiver from Miami Northwestern, in a chaotic ceremony. He picked Syracuse over Michigan, over Oregon, Miami FSU, others. I mean, this was a huge pickup for Fran Brown. Calvin Russell even tweeted out moments before his ceremony that he wasn't committed to anyone yet. Word was starting to leak that the Orangemen were the winner. I don't think anybody was really believing this until he finally announced around 10 p.m. Eastern. It was like a 3-hour ceremony, but Calvin Russell makes it official. He's heading to Syracuse. All right. Let's move on. Notre Dame's insane run continues. The Irish now have 24 commitments. 5 wide receivers are committed to the Irish, and it isn't even mid-July yet. Notre Dame picked up 3 of these commitments in the last 3 days. Notre Dame now sitting at number 4 in the Rivals ranking. But how about this run of wide receivers? On the 4th, it was Caden Finley. On the 5th, it was Devin Fitzgerald. And on the 6th, right here on the Rivals Recruiting channel, Braden Robinson rounds out that Notre Dame wide receiver class. It's just unbelievable. We're going to talk more about it with Mike Singer from Blue and Gold, but just a fun ride if you're a Notre Dame fan. I mean, we've seen these classes build in prior off seasons only to fall apart either as the season nears or during the season, but this one looks rock solid to me. All right. We had some early fireworks. Yes. Imani Ihanacho, the number 2 ranked offensive tackle in America, commits to Oregon. He didn't even have a date set. Ihanacho makes it official with Hayes Fawcett on July 3rd. He kind of jumped the line. I don't know if maybe Hayes was busy and said, hey, if you want to get a spot in here, you're going to have to do it on the 3rd. No, I'm kidding. I think Imani could pretty much commit whenever he wanted to. But the Ducks add an absolute monster in the number 2 ranked offensive tackle in America. Ihanacho's the number 4 ranked overall prospect in America. 6'7", 350 pounds, big and athletic. July 3rd, fireworks came a day early. All right, still some number 1s on the board. I know what everybody's thinking. Josh, how are you going to cover recruiting moving forward? Everybody's committed. No, they're not. Don't worry. And flip season's coming, so really don't worry about me. I'll always have content. But Here, there's still some number ones on the board. We got a few. Number one, running back Savion Hyder. He has hinted that a decision could be coming soon. I think Michigan, Tennessee, kind of the odds-on favorites there. Number one, linebacker Tyler Atkinson, leaning toward Georgia per most of the experts, but could Texas, could Oregon, could Ohio State, could somebody make a play for Atkinson besides Georgia? Number one athlete, Lamar Brown. I think that one's either LSU or Texas A&M. You got number one safety, Braylon Womack. I'm maybe leaning Buckeyes there. He's from Mississippi, but I think I'm leaning Ohio State. Number one interior offensive lineman. He's the last number one at his position that's still uncommitted. Darius Gray, maybe South Carolina, maybe Ohio State, maybe Georgia. We'll see what happens there. But Darius Gray is still involved. So 5 number one players at their position, still on the board, yet to drop decision dates, yet to commit. So there's still some meat left on the bone after a busy weekend. You guys talk to me. How are we feeling? What do you think was the most impactful commitment that we saw on a crazy weekend of commitments? Let me know. Comment section below. Talk some Notre Dame recruiting because the Irish are absolutely cooking. Notre Dame at number 4 in the rival on the rival industry ranking. So let's talk with Mike Singer. What an incredible run. The 4th, 5th, and 6th at the wide receiver position. You had Caden Finley on the 4th. You had Devin Fitzgerald on the 5th. Then right here on the Rivals Recruit channel, you had Braden Robinson on the 6th. Mike, what do you think of these additions, and how do they complement each other on the field?
Yeah, how about it? I mean, I was talking with my staff of Blue and Gold. We got to research the last time Notre Dame had a 5-man receiver class. There's been years past where Notre Dame wants 4 or they want 5 and they end up taking 2 or 3. One year they wanted 3 or 4 receivers and only could take 1. Like Notre Dame receiver recruiting, for the past several years has not been the strongest point of its classes. And this 5-man haul is very talented. You have 2 outside receivers in Caden Finley and Devin Fitzgerald, really good ball skills, leaping ability, can take a 10-yard, intermediate reception and go the distance. And then you got these speedy slot guys and Dylan Faison, Bubba Frazier, and then today with Braden Robinson's commitments. These guys are very productive at the high school level. Pretty big recruiting wins over each of these, beating out some big-time schools. I mean, kudos to that Notre Dame recruiting office and position coach Mike Brown. This is a darn good receiver class for Notre Dame, especially getting 5.
Yeah.
I love it.
How has Notre Dame recruiting, especially at the wide receiver position? I mean, it's not just the wide receiver coach. When we talk on this channel about Notre Dame recruiting, I mean, Caden Finley, Devin Fitzgerald, especially these last 3, Braden Robinson. I mean, these guys were all at the top of the board, high priority. And we all know that in college recruiting, you offer way more than you're going to take. You got guys at the top of the board. You may or may not get them, but it seemed like Notre Dame just picked off exactly who they wanted at the position.
Yeah, we've talked before about that pot of gold day, which is usually like Notre Dame's launch point for the next recruiting class. So just this past March, Notre Dame offered like 90 or 95 guys in the 2027 class. So this time last year, they offered Dylan Faison, who committed to Notre Dame on that day. His older brother plays for the Notre Dame football team. Notre Dame was his first offer. Miami actually offered a few weeks ago, but Faison told me he's locked in with Notre Dame. Caden Finley was a pot of gold guy, and then also Braden Robinson. So we're talking 16 months ago, Notre Dame offered Finley and Robinson. And then I just want to mention real quick, when Bubba Frazier, who's like a 5'10", 165-poundish slot receiver from Georgia, when he committed to Notre Dame earlier this year, I wasn't too sure if Notre Dame would still end up with Robinson. They're very similar players on top of Faison, who's also in that like 5'10", 5'11 slot receiver range. And Notre Dame across the board at multiple positions has just been like, let's just get as many guys as we can. Like, we're hot right now. Kids want to come to Notre Dame. We're off this national championship appearance, so they're loading up 6 offensive linemen, couple tight ends, couple running backs, 5 receivers, 4 defensive linemen. I think they're going to end up with 5 DBs. Like, this is a big class. Like, it's at 25 commits right now. Whew. They could end the summer at 27. This class might end up around 30.
So that leads me to my next question. What is next? I mean, we know we're big game hunting, but is there any needs left to fill? We know there's going to be some attrition. I mean, that's not a Notre Dame thing. That's just a fact of recruiting. Some of these guys that are committed are not going to be, so we can assume there's a couple more spots, give or take. So what's next for Notre Dame recruiting?
Talking to Notre Dame sources, the feeling is that this is the most locked-in class they've ever had. Now, Josh.
I believe that.
You do believe it. I believe it. But how many times have we heard that and there's still decommits? Senior season things. Hey, I don't know if there is, though, Josh. There may not be.
It just happens, Mike.
It does.
Ever since I'll give you one. I was covering a recruitment of DeMarcus Walker. At the time, the national championship game was being played. Alabama was in it. DeMarcus Walker was committed to Alabama. He was a 5-star edge, and after the game, Alabama wins. The confetti's falling down in Alabama's win, and DeMarcus Walker flips his commitment from Alabama to Florida State. I mean, at that point, I just knew, like, attrition is not – it's going to happen. It's recruiting. It's going to happen.
Yeah. I agree with you that history suggests it. I wouldn't be surprised though if there's not any decommits.
Mark this tape. We'll see how many guys as of July 6th end up signing. And I'm not a hater. I mean, I've been very honest. There's been times where I haven't been afraid to say this Notre Dame class is falling apart. I don't see that happening. Yeah. But go ahead.
I agree.
Okay, so what's next for Notre Dame recruiting?
Well, yeah, in years past, like I think last class Notre Dame had like 5 or 6. Some of those drops, some of those decommits, like Deuce Knight, and so. But I think at most it would be like 2. Like I really do feel like this class is locked in. I mean, Thomas Davis Jr. would be one that in years past you would think would decommit after getting the offer from his dad's school. Tweeting out that he's locked in with Hayes Fawcett, putting out the graphic. But July 11th. So just a few days from now, Nick Reddish from Charlotte, a defensive back who missed his junior season, but very, very talented player based on a sophomore film. He's going to announce between Notre Dame and Virginia Tech. A few other schools in the mix, but that's the 2 really we're watching. I like the Irish. And then Elijah Golden, defensive lineman from Sarasota, Florida, originally from Virginia, Notre Dame, Bama battle, it looks like. I like the Irish there. And then, as you know, these coaching staffs and recruiting offices, when it push comes to shove in the fall, like, do we want to take more? They usually do. So that's why I could see it being around 30. Is it a 3rd linebacker? Is it a 5th defensive lineman? Is it somewhere else? Like, definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I'm going to pencil those guys in because your picks have been dead on this offseason. I don't know what it is. I don't know if you're just able to read minds of high schoolers better, or maybe it's the fact that Notre Dame's coming off of a national championship run and they just have some momentum. I don't know. It's definitely one of the 2, so just keep on making these predictions. You can't miss right now, Mike.
Josh, 28 official visitors for Notre Dame. I think in June, I think they signed 27 of them right now. That's an incredible percentage.
Yeah, that's a incredible hit rate right there on official visitors. So it's just something that's kind of unprecedented. But Notre Dame recruiting right this offseason, it's on fire. So talk to us. Who do you guys think is still the most important target left on the board? Let us know. Let's talk a little Michigan recruiting. The commit-a-thon is over. The Wolverines landed 2 more big commitments over the weekend. One of them was right here on the Rivals recruiting channel. And E.J. Holland from the Wolverine, we've seen a lot of commitments, right? I've been doing this for 20 years. You've been doing this for over 10 years. We've seen a lot of commitments, but yesterday, Dorian Barney right here on have you ever seen anything like this?
That's my favorite commitment video of all time, or favorite live stream of all time. Just getting up, leaving, and then everybody just followed him, and all we had was the view of the shed. The greatest commitment video, in my opinion. And you can't even see what hat he puts on there. I'm not even sure if that was a Michigan hat or not. Obviously, people in the chat were super confused. I think some people thought it was a Penn State hat. You see Unk there. He's confused. You have grandmas running in later on here that are confused. So, and just to make it clear, Josh, I think you can confirm this was not planned with Rivals. And, this was a remote broadcast. So things just went haywire here.
Hold on. We do have the lost tape. Hold on. Let's not show this yet. I want to talk a little bit about, yes, See, this was planned, EJ. Actually, 2 months ago, Dorian Barney reached out to me. Over the course of the last 2 months, we probably had 4 or 5 conversations about how all this is going to go down. We probably in the last week had 2 or 3 conversations. We even did a dry run of how this is all going to go down. And here's the commitment. We cut out his mom speaking, his dad. So Dorian told me, my mom's going to speak, my dad's going to speak, then I'm going to commit. We even went over the fact that, hey, are you going to commit standing up or sitting down? He said, no, I'm just going to put a hat on. So here he's already standing, which, hey, no big deal. It happens. It's exciting. I'm thinking like, hey, he's going to sit down. He's going to put that Michigan hat on, whatever shenanigans is going on right here. But whoa, Dorian, we did not cover this. This was not part of the dry run. I don't know what's happening here. So you know what? We just let it go. Obviously, Dorian Barney not following. He called an audible, folks. At the line, Dorian Barney called an audible. But we have the lost tapes. Roll it. So Dorian Barney called me, said, hey, it was a last minute change. I go, we practiced this like 45 minutes before. He go, I know, it was last minute. I'm like, all right. Well,
he's not even
here's the lost tape.
He's not even wearing the hat he originally put on. Like, we still don't know what that hat was.
No, he's not wearing the hat. We do not know, but obviously it wasn't a Michigan hat because nobody went crazy. So here, this is the audible. So everybody's filming this on their phones, and this is actually really cool. I love this. It looks like a Hayes Fawcett graphic coming to life. Like if Hayes was an artist and he decorated the garage, this would be it. But, it also got me thinking, EJ, how last minute could this have been?
I think maybe
this was not last minute. This was well planned. I mean, this is really good. So I don't know what happened, but we need an NIL deal with the shed that was behind that.
Oh yeah,
that shed sighting got about 5 minutes of airtime.
The screenshot that I think it was a user Wolverine Casual, he posted that screenshot where it's like Dorian Barney commits to Michigan. It's just the shed. That was the best picture of the day. And then, that kind of led into, not to stray off topic away from Dorian Barney, the GOAT, but that kind of led into the Calvin Russell disaster where he wasn't even at his own ceremony for an entire hour. The audio cut out of that ceremony. You couldn't tell who he picked.
It's not easy. I'm telling you, these live commitments, I mean, first of all, you would think like this is maybe like a wedding, a celebration for a wedding, a coming home, a big coming home party, something so significant. I mean, these kids are committing to a college. They haven't played any college football yet. They're just committing to a college, and it is absolutely insane. Yeah. Let's get to Calvin Russell. So we have some footage, I believe, of Russell walking in. He had a big party. He commits to Syracuse. But like you said, this was another one that will be remembered kind of for just the chaos of it all. He had, how many people do you think were there? And there was no sign of him for a while.
Yeah, he wasn't there for an entire hour. Well, I mean, this party was supposed to last from, I believe it was 7 p.m. to midnight. So he was supposed to start his Instagram live at 9 p.m. Eastern. So 9 p.m. Eastern rolls around. I think everybody was waiting for this announcement. Whether you were there or not, you were refreshing the Instagram and nothing was happening other than his followers. Like if you saw from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., if you were refreshing the Instagram page, his followers outrageously grew, like by the thousands, not even joking, like thousands and thousands of followers. So he kind of built it up. Then he kind of arrives Floyd Mayweather style, like he's entering some type of boxing match, has the shades on and everything, does the ring walk before he finally gets to, his announcement podium. And at that point, again, kind of becomes a bit of a circus. The audio cuts out. You don't know what's going on. And he commits to Syracuse. So that one was obviously wild. I think for Michigan fans, obviously it was really disappointing. That's one where it really came down to the wire. I really don't think Russell informed the staffs beforehand. At least he did not inform Michigan from what I have been able to gather. And he committed to Syracuse. But it kind of seemed, if you kind of read some of my updates on the fort over at the Wolverine, our message board, I kind of posted like this has a little bit of shock factor value. Like he spoke to our national team earlier in the week and had told them that Syracuse was basically out of his top 4. And I was like, no, that is not what I'm hearing. I think they're, right there with Michigan. That is Michigan's biggest threat. And I was consistent with that throughout the entire week. And I think the nature of Calvin Russell's announcement ceremony shows you the nature of this recruitment. This one was a hype machine recruitment. Not that Calvin Russell is not good, he is. But I'm saying this recruitment, the buildup, the leaving Syracuse out purposely, I think all of this was very manufactured, whether it was by Russell or his agency or whoever was helping him. And it's great marketing. Like I said, he was building up thousands and thousands of followers. I mean, it's a marketing game as much as it is, just actually playing football these days. So I think it worked out in his benefit to build up that hype. And I think that a lot of people just kind of assumed it would be Michigan. You think Michigan versus Syracuse. Michigan's the superior program here, obviously. But that just, it wasn't the case. I think Syracuse did a really nice job of personally building a relationship with him. They put together a really strong NIL package. They're allowing him to play basketball. They've landed guys from Miami, Northwestern in the past. So, I think it's a good learning lesson in the NIL era with agents and with marketing groups and with social media. You're going to have to be on BS alert every day. Anytime.
But do you think it's over?
No, absolutely not. But but you're going to have to be on BS alert every day. When you cover recruitments that are 5 stars, where you have marketing agencies and NIL agents and all of this already involved, it's a great learning lesson. We heard, and I posted this before the announcement earlier in the day. I said, I do not know. It's Michigan, it's Syracuse. I'm not going to get into I'm feeling this, because the feeling's BS, and I did have my BS meter out. And I think everybody needs to approach it that way. If you really don't know, if he hasn't informed staffs, if he's not a media-friendly kid, if you don't have a great personal relationship with him, you have to be on BS alert. But in terms of if this is over, no, obviously not. I don't know if Michigan is going to continue to pursue. I think the way he kind of handled things may have rubbed people the wrong way, but, we'll see how things go from there. I think this is one that's going to continue all the way through signing day. Whether Michigan circles back or not, we'll see. But, it's kind of interesting. You look at the other finalists like LSU, Miami, Oregon. These programs have NIL as well. It's not just Michigan that's a money machine. Obviously, all 3 of those programs have spent big with NIL, but they didn't do so initially. Will they do so in December? Will Michigan do so in December? If they do, who knows? We'll see. So I don't think it's over, but yeah, what a chaotic weekend, Josh, with those 2.
Insane. So if, for those scoring at home, Travis Johnson, the wide receiver, he's in. DB Dorian Barney is in. Now we know Savion Hyder's still out there. We're going to talk about that in a second. Michigan fans, do me a favor, though. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. It's actually called the Rivals Recruits channel now. We're not on 3 anymore. We're Rivals Recruits channel. Sorry, but hit subscribe. All right. So before we get to Hyder, though, linebacker is still a need, right? Is that kind of the next big position to fill?
Yeah, that is the next position to fill. And, I'm still laughing, Josh, at the two recruitments we just discussed, because when we talked about Barney, we didn't even discuss the fact that there were multiple silent commits, a decommitment from Alabama. That one's one to watch until signing day. But anyway.
I believe he's been to 3 high schools.
Hey, it is what it is, man. It's today's game. It's fun.
Recruiting.
But no, linebacker is next up for need. You have some guys making decisions here soon. DQ Forkbuzz up July 12th. Michigan playing from behind there. I think he'll probably end up at one of the Florida schools. I think Nick Abrams, July 16th, is still one to watch. He recently told our national team that Michigan's basically running 4th. But I think now with this Russell circus over and Michigan having such a big need for linebacker, maybe they up their NIL game with Abrams. Linebacker is not really a sexy NIL position or one that Michigan has really spent on in the past. They've really utilized the transfer portal and have landed some big gets out of the portal at the linebacker position. But I think they would like to have a high-end linebacker this cycle. So I think Nick Abrams, Braden Rouse, those are the guys that if they're going to spend on, it would be one of those two prospects. And Rouse doesn't have an exact decision date left. Running fourth for Abrams, that's not where you want to be, a little more than a week out, but things can change quickly in recruiting. And I actually thought Michigan might have had the lead coming out of his official visit. So I think there's reason for optimism that they can get right back up to the top with a really strong NIL offer. I think Michigan checks a lot of his other boxes right now too. They could look for a project type at linebacker as well. They recently offered Liberty commit Caden Catchings, but right now I think the big three announcements that are set to come soon, and again, Rouse hasn't set one, but we do expect him to do so in the near future. It's Braden Rouse, it's Nick Abrams, it's DQ Forkba.
And then we get to number one running back Savion Hyder, and over the weekend he confirmed his top four of Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, and Tennessee, and he said a decision is coming soon. He hasn't set the date. When do you think it'll be, July or August? And also, who do you think the biggest competition is right now for Michigan?
Yeah, from my understanding, Hyder and his family are, really trying to keep things on the down low. They don't really want any type of leaks out there. If I were to guess, it'd be sometime later in July or early August. When I talked to Hyder in the spring, that's kind of what he was leaning towards. So if he sticks to the timeline he previously had in mind, then that's when it'll be. I don't think it'll, bleed into his senior football season. I think he's the type of kid who is probably just kind of done with this process, and he's having a hard time making the decision. But he does want to make it before his senior season starts. He plays for a really small school, Louisa County in Virginia, and community is very big there. And I think he just wants to fully focus on that senior season. So it'll be here at some point, in the next few weeks, in my opinion. But I like I said, I think it's a tight battle. I think he's having a tough time with it. I think both Michigan and Tennessee are still very, very much at the top of that list, very alive. They both did a great job on their respective official visits. I think they both have done a great job with the NIL aspect. I think they've done a great job of making him feel like home. So I think Hyder and his family are in decision mode, and they're just kind of talking about those last things, and we'll see. But, I'm still optimistic about Michigan's chances, but it's, like I said, very, very close.
All right, Michigan fans, appreciate you guys stopping by. Glad we could release the law. Let's talk some Alabama recruiting. The Tide are sitting at number 5 in the Rivals industry rankings. They got 5 5-stars committed, a 5-star on the board that just cut his list down, and we got a 5-star joining us. Tim Watts, Bama Online. We got to talk about a 5-star commitment. Jaira Edwards made his decision live on Saturday. Tim, when did this really end? Because when he canceled that Oregon visit, at that point, was he already in the boat with Alabama?
Yeah, I think so. That's something you look for during the official visit weekends, is when a guy takes a school, visits a school, you hear he's really trending that way, loved the visit, and then he canceled. And that's what we were waiting on. We knew the feedback was Edwards had absolutely been blown away. The Tide staff had did an amazing job recruiting him. Middle of the week, he cancels Texas A&M and Oregon. Went really quiet from that point forward, kind of had to wait. We thought maybe he might, sneak in earlier than that July 5th date he had, but he stuck with it, committed to Alabama, and it's a massive pickup for him.
Absolutely. And Alabama fans, we are excited here. Jump on board, hit subscribe. We're talking Bama recruiting all off season long. We're not going to stop now. So, Tim, let's get into this secondary. How are you feeling about the Tide secondary class with Edwards in the boat?
Yeah, I think you look at what Mo Linguist did last year, and this year you turn around and look Jordan Edmonds. He's also a 5-star commitment in that secondary. They got a couple of guys they like. We don't even talk about Zion Gibson enough, and he's in that top 100 range, committed right around Christmas. Has took a couple official visits and locked it down. But you get 2 5-stars there. Last year, you love what they got with Dijon Lee, Ivan Taylor, Chuck McDonald. They did a great job. Very high quality. Might not be as many as some people expected, but they sneak up there pretty quick and get into that 7 or 8 range these last 2 classes.
All right, so we got a 5-star on the board. I teased it. He's narrowed his list. We're talking in-state target. Tank Jones, the elite edge, is down to 3. Alabama, Oregon, Texas A&M, and Tim, we don't have a decision date, but I'm going to assume it's coming this summer. So out of these 3, well, Oregon and A&M, who do you view as the biggest competition?
Let's assume anything with Tank. He's been very quiet. He's kept exactly what he said he would do. He kept his unofficial visits low key, his official visits low key. I know from the Alabama end, they did a fantastic job. They've still got it. You know, you're looking at a guy that could project anywhere from Wolf, anywhere on the defensive line, basically. He's got that body type. He's that elite type prospect that you look for. I mean, obviously, if he's going to stay in the state of Alabama, it's going to be Alabama, even though early on Auburn felt they had some optimism at one point. But, we hear a lot about Texas A&M. I wouldn't count out Oregon. I think it's too early to have like a prediction. But I do think Alabama's did everything it needed to and could do to up to this stage.
All right. So when we look at Alabama's defensive line recruiting, it looks like are they done on the defensive front?
Not necessarily. They have 4 committed. Going into the cycle, we knew they wanted a big group. They've got 4, as I said. Nolan Wilson's obviously a monster get. He went on July 4th. Big fireworks for Crimson Tide fans. A top priority, had offers across the country. Miami came in really, really strong. I think they would add another one. Nolan Wilson, again, could project at that Wolf outside linebacker position or move inside depending on his body type. So it depends on what you label him as. Also, Elijah Golden. There's still some communication there. I know Notre Dame felt a little bit of confidence, but I do know they're still talking with Alabama.
All right, so outside of defensive line, is there really a position of need left to fill?
Yeah, I think they want to get another offensive lineman. They're very particular on the offensive lineman. We've seen that with Coach Cap, who's the offensive line coach at Alabama, and Courtney Morgan being the GM and playing offensive line at Michigan. Very, very particular. So that list has kind of dwindled down. They like Bryson Cooley. He ended up committing to LSU. They still like Wilson Zaire, whose brother played at Auburn. So that's been another quiet recruitment. So I think they'll go into this senior year if they don't get the guy they want, looking for others. We saw them offer Bear Fretwell, an offensive lineman. Looks like a huge upside guy, 6'7", 4.77. Rusty Manziel told me at one of his camps that he was at. Committed to Georgia Tech, so they'll keep knocking on doors and kicking over rocks, I think, till they get that third guy.
All right, Bama fans, tap in. How do you feel now that the dust is kind of settled on the latest run of commitments? Who do you feel is the top target still left on the board? Let us know. Comment section below.